I'm on the North Norfolk coast and I have the most amazing discovery to tell you about.
We have exclusive footage of an ancient forest discovered on the seabed.
I'd actually been swimming for about 15 minutes before I came to anything, and it's just this enormous, great, almost a standing wave of black stuff in front of me, and it took me a while to work out what it was.
And if there's something you think we should be looking into here on the programme, you can get in touch with me on Twitter at David_InsideOut, and my email address is david.whiteley@bbc.co.uk. You're watching Inside Out for the East of England here on BBC One. Coming up, should parts of Essex and Hertfordshire become part of London? Thousands of years ago, there was a vast forest out here on land that linked us to mainland Europe. Now, it's hard to believe looking at the sea today, but the only way to see the evidence of that mysterious lost land is to look beneath the waves.
The North Sea, forever shaping and changing the very nature of our coastline.
Of course, we all know about erosion, the very land we live on, constantly but gradually being eaten away by the rising and falling tides. But last winter, a devastating storm surge did more than just nibble away at our coast.
The coast was battered by the surge of water not seen for 60 years. Homes were destroyed, land was lost, and some wildlife habitats gone forever.
But what Mother Nature takes with one hand, she often gives with another. The movement of water on the seabed was so violent that something amazing has been uncovered.
Rob Spray knows the North Norfolk coastline incredibly well. He and his partner Dawn Watson have spent years studying the coast under the water. They brought the existence of the world's largest chalk reef off the coast here to the attention of the world. Now they've made a new discovery, thanks to the storm.
I mean, you can see what the damage it did on the surface, and underwater you have that on a grander scale. Sort of thousands of tons of sand and gravel can just be sort of shuffled one way or another, and so when you have sort of 2-metre high piles of sand that are several miles long, that's tens of thousands of tons of material which can be moved overnight. So it's no surprise that sort of after an event like that you see sort of sand stripped away, and it also uncovered other new stuff.
Rob and Dawn dive off the North Norfolk coast to study reefs and marine life, and what they discovered recently sent shivers down their spines.
I set off north, and I'd actually been swimming for about 15 minutes before I came to anything, and it's just this enormous, great, almost a standing wave of black stuff in front of me, and it took me a while to work out what it was, and it was actually just wood shaped like a wave. But unfortunately I was just on the point of turning to come back, so I didn't have a lot of air left.
So you found something that said to you, this is incredible.
Yeah.
A bit like finding a needle in a haystack.
Well, yeah. I was really lucky. I just clipped the very end of what we know is there now. If I'd been 3 or 4 metres to the right, we'd never have seen it at all. I'd have just come back and said it's just sand. To start with, I actually thought it was a piece of wreck because it just looked like a piece of hull. It wasn't until I had a really close look that I realised it was actually solid wood.
So what did you find?
It's the remains of a forest, probably oak trees that have been knocked flat, presumably by an outwash from a glacier or something. But this first part we came to is just all compressed together into a big, solid lump of wood.
And when you see their footage, it's so clearly a tree. Starfish and crabs have made the knots in the wood their home.
The ancient forest is actually really close to the shore. If you look behind me, see that mast sticking out of the water? That's a First World War wreck. That's about 200 metres from the beach, and the discovery was made just a bit further out to sea. What has happened to this exposed timber since?
Well, as soon as anything sort of hard is exposed, animal life just rushes to it. So we have lots of little animals moving in, and we've then had big animals come in and feed on them. And it just so happened that the trees were covered in hydroids and bryozoans, and they're obscure little animals, like colonies, like really fine sort of super filigree coral. And they were thrilled to find lots of species of those on these trees, because clearly they'd loved the that's the material the trees were made of. And that's the kind of thing that only happens when you get a new opportunity available for animals. They come in, they colonise, and they flourish.
This discovery actually forms part of a much bigger picture. A prehistoric land once existed right here in the North Sea. It was so vast, the hunter-gatherers who lived here would have been able to walk all the way to Germany. So with every discovery like these trees, it gives scientists more of an idea of what life would have been like on this mysterious lost land.
Using seismic surveys from the oil and gas industry, experts have managed to map what the land would have looked like around 10,000 years ago, when this forest would have stood tall and proud in this prehistoric land. It shows where marshes would have been, rivers and hills. Martin Warren is a geologist and fascinated by what's been discovered.
Martin, how significant or how exciting is this discovery that Rob and Dawn have made?
Well, I think I've only just heard about it, but it's very exciting. We'd like to know more. We've got a vague idea of what the land was like out there that's under the sea before the sea level rose over the last few thousand years, because of work that was done at Birmingham University.
What would the land have been like here?
Well, before the sea level rose back to its present state after the end of the last ice age, we know that there were former coastline positions going tens and tens of miles out over the horizon, spits and salt marshes, lakes, hills, estuaries and so on. So there's a whole landscape out there under the sea that was inhabited only a few thousand years ago during what the archaeologists call the Mesolithic period.
It's quite hard to believe, isn't it, standing here today, looking out over the North Sea, to think that that was all solid land that stretched all the way to mainland Europe.
Yes, there was another country out there that Europe forgot that it had.
So we could get an exact picture of when this forest would have been standing tall, standing proud out here.
I think it's within the realms of possibility, yes.
Do you think it's possible that more discoveries like this will be made?
I'm sure it's one of those cases where the more you look, the more there is to find. And because it's under the sea, it's difficult to operate out there, so there are bound to be things that are yet to be discovered. We just have to keep looking.
It's thought the lost land, known as Doggerland, flooded over several thousand years, forcing the many tribes who lived here to gradually abandon their homes. But it's also believed that the remaining tribes were wiped out by a 5-metre tsunami which came down the North Sea, caused by a subsea landslide off the coast of Norway. A sample of peat taken from the ancient timber has been given to the Environmental Studies Department at the University of East Anglia. Professor Julian Andrews is looking at the sample.
I think the tree is very significant because we don't find whole trees very often preserved on the coast. I mean, we do find peats, we do find tree stumps, but not whole trees usually.
And this is a sample of peat that's been broken off from the tree.
Yeah.
What's in that?
Yeah, so this is peat which probably came from around the base of the tree. So the tree would have been rooted into soil, but there would have been peat around it. And inside it we've got plant fragments. You can't see them very clearly here, but there's plant material. This is really made of plant material. We haven't dated this sample, but we have dated samples from a very similar height, very close by, only hundreds of metres away, and they returned radiocarbon ages of about 10,000 years.
Wow.
So
you think that this tree could be around the same period?
I think it's very likely, yes.
So would this tree have formed part of a forest? Is that a likely scenario?
I think it's very likely, yeah. I think, imagine something like modern-day Broadland, where you get the very wet fringes to the lakes, and you get oak and hazel and willow, those sorts of trees. So imagine a forest, yes, exactly.
So when you get a discovery like this, is that quite exciting for people like yourself who've spent
Absolutely.
a lifetime studying this area?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, every time... The great thing about this kind of science is that, you know, there's always a surprise around the corner, and they're always exciting, you know, however big or small they might be. So, yeah.
This could be just the beginning. Who knows what else is out there, hiding off our coast, waiting to be found to tell us more secrets about our ancient history.
Well, that's it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed the programme. You can get in touch with me on Twitter at David_InsideOut. And my email address is david.whiteley@bbc.co.uk. That's it from Cley next to sea. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Next week, we reveal how small cameras are catching professional drivers who drive badly. We're at an NHS call centre to show the pressures staff face and to see what happens when people call 111. And the extraordinary story of the train disaster of 1874.